Are you struggling with back and leg pain from spinal stenosis and an L4-5 disc bulge? The discomfort can be debilitating, transforming everyday activities into real challenges. But what if the key to getting relief was just a few simple exercises away? This isn't just about temporary fixes, it's about taking a step towards a life where pain doesn't dictate your limits. If you've tried various treatments without success, I understand the frustration. You're not alone in feeling like you're on an endless search for relief. The constant nagging pain in your back and legs has become your unwelcome companion. It's making even basic tasks seem very difficult. It's not just the physical discomfort, it's the impact on your quality of life, preventing you from enjoying moments that used to bring joy. In this video, I will show you the 5 best exercises for spinal stenosis from an L4-5 disc bulge or disc herniation. This isn't your average exercise routine. These exercises have been carefully selected based on their effectiveness, based on their safety, for those like you struggling with spinal stenosis and disc bulges or disc herniations. I understand the importance of gentle yet effective movements that can make a significant difference in managing your pain and improving your mobility. The video is designed to guide you through each exercise, ensuring you perform them correctly for maximum benefits. I'll dive into how each exercise targets the areas affected by spinal stenosis and the L4-5 disc bulge, offering you a clear path towards alleviating pain. Whether you're a beginner, whether you have some experience with exercise and physical therapy, these exercises are designed to be accessible and doable from the comfort of your own home. Now, please be sure to watch to the very end. You might miss the one exercise that's of most importance to you. Every moment's packed with insights, not just on how to perform each exercise, but also understanding the mechanics of your specific condition. Skipping any part of the video could mean missing out on crucial information that could be the key to getting the relief you need. It's not just about following along. It's about empowering you with knowledge to take control of your pain, to deal with that journey that you're on and how to manage that. Watch, learn, start your path to a more comfortable, active life today. Remember, relief is not only possible, it's within your reach. I am Dr. John Zielonka. I'm a neurofunctional chiropractor in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I've been doing this for over 30 years now. I'm the author of 10 books, including my latest, Low Back Pain is Not a Life Sentence. I'm the founder of National Health Day in Canada. I'm honored to say we've been voted Ottawa's best 15 times. As well, I've had the privilege to work with some of the world's best athletes. My YouTube channel focuses on helping those who are suffering with debilitating chronic back and neck pain. Now, before I dive into these 5 exercises, a couple things to keep in mind. Whenever you're doing new exercises, it should feel comfortable and tolerable, and it should never aggravate your pain or your condition. We're going to talk about that a lot actually today, and it's of key importance. It's always best to get cleared from your particular health professional who is an expert or qualified in these matters before starting any exercise program. Now let's get started. All right, so the 5 exercises, when we're talking about exercise, what I'm about to discuss with you, I wish everyone on the internet could listen to. Okay? Because what we're going to talk about, exercise has to be specific to you. It's one of the mistakes that a lot of people make. They go online and they hear what are the top 3 exercises for every condition. That doesn't really exist. Each condition is going to have specific things going on. That's what we want to discuss with you. If you really want to try and watch a video that really does have exercises that are good for most back conditions, then go watch my video called The 4 Best Invisible Exercises. But today what we're talking about is lumbar spinal stenosis caused by an L4-5 disc bulge. And what's interesting about that is those are 2 completely different conditions. So again, if we look at our vertebrae, you've got vertebrae, disc, vertebrae. What happens in a disc bulge is you'll find that if you go too much into flexion, which is actually putting pressure on the front, you'll then start to see how the disc will actually bulge out at the back. So we want to avoid doing any type of flexion if we have a disc herniation or a disc bulge. By the same token, if we have spinal stenosis, we actually then want to get into flexion because it actually opens the canal and takes pressure off. So that, of course, then brings up the topic, well, then what do we do if we have both of those? Well, that's why ideally you need to be examined by someone who's qualified. This is not typically just your average doctor or health professional. It should be an expert in the field. So that's what's going to make today so interesting. We're really looking at two different opposite conditions. So one of the things you have to do with this is when you do these, please do them slowly. Please feel what you're feeling. You'll find that a lot of the exercises we're going to discuss today, even though you have the L4-5 disc bulge, the exercises are going to be more designed to how to deal with stenosis, because it's the L4-5 disc bulge that's then causing the stenosis, which is the bigger problem in this particular case. But again, you may be someone who it's the reverse is true, and if that's the case, then you should be going more towards the exercises that would be more ideal for a disc bulge or a disc herniation. So for the first exercise, we're going to start with what's called a pelvic tilt. So for number one, pelvic tilt, and again, this gets confusing for a lot of people as well. A pelvic tilt, obviously the pelvis is down here. Okay? A pelvic tilt, people misuse this term all the time. Some people refer to a posterior pelvic tilt, some refer to an anterior pelvic tilt. They exist, but are we referring to the top of the pelvis, where a posterior pelvic tilt would be one that then goes backwards or posterior? An anterior pelvic tilt would be one that goes forward or anterior. But a lot of people also refer to the bottom of the pelvis. So now if I talk about posterior pelvic tilt, if the bottom's coming forward, well then or backwards, then the top is actually going forward. So you can see where the confusion comes in. So what we're looking to do with a pelvic tilt, and so this is what's called a supine pelvic tilt. So supine just means you're lying on your back. And in a supine pelvic tilt, what we want to do is, if this is a stenosis, what we want to do is we want to flatten the lower back. So that's, again, the equivalent of opening up that canal. And in a stenosis case, that's going to be beneficial. If it was more disc bulge and disc herniation, we would do the exact opposite, where we would then arch that lower back. And while we're doing this, we want to do all the other positive things we should be doing. So we're going to want to activate our glutes. So you're going to squeeze the glutes together. You're going to want to have that abdominal hollow. So you're going to want to pull that belly button up and in. And you're just simply going to do this movement nice and slow. So you're flattening the lower part of the back against the table or the bed or the floor or whatever you're on. You're going to hold that for 5 or 10 seconds, and then you're going to release. And then you're going to do that again. This is something you can do easily 5 to 10 times, each time holding it for about 5 or 10 seconds. Don't forget to breathe while you're doing this exercise. A lot of people forget that. You should not be holding your breath while you're doing this. And then just, again, pay attention to your body. The whole idea is we're wanting to take pressure off the area if we want to open up that canal. So we're going to start with the pelvic tilt now. So Tanya is actually flattening the arch of her back against the bed, against the table. She's holding for 5 or 10 seconds, and then she's releasing that. And then you repeat that at least a good 5 to 10 times. A lot of people wonder, how many times do they need to do this? Is it once a week? Is it twice a week? Ideally, you should be doing this every day. And in fact, you can even do this multiple times a day. It does not take long to do this type of exercise. And the whole goal is it's going to relieve some of the pressure, open up that canal. If you find that these would actually hurt you, then it's telling you that more of what you're feeling is coming from the disc bulge and the disc herniation, and then you would actually do the opposite. You would go more towards arching the back when you do that and actually holding that for a good 5 to 10 seconds. But again, this is why it's so important that you are properly diagnosed and don't just try and go and do the average exercise for the average person. Exercise number 2 is what's called the prone leg extension. But again, we would be doing two opposite things, whether it's more from spinal stenosis or more from the disc bulge. If it's spinal stenosis, we want to stay more in flexion to open up that canal. If it's more of the disc bulge, then we want to go into an extension. Think of it almost like a jelly donut. Okay? So what happens is, if I step on one side of the jelly donut, well, then the jelly is going to squish out at the back side. So we want to avoid flexion if it's more of that disc bulge or disc herniation. But again, right, if it's more stenosis, we want to open that canal. That's why you'll see the seniors hang on to their shopping carts, when they're grocery shopping and so forth. So what we do here is we're going to get into the prone position. So that just means lying on your stomach. So just get down there. And you're going to use, here we're using a bolster. You can use a pillow for this. So you're going to put this down, and what Tanya's going to do is she's going to put her hip bones, or really the top of her pelvis, what we call her ASIS, right on top of there. And so what we're doing is we're actually cheating a little bit, for lack of a better term, is because typically if you would just raise a leg, you're going to get into extension. If we use the bolster or the pillow, we're putting the spine into flexion, which is more beneficial for the stenosis. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to be lifting one leg at a time, 6 to 12 inches off the ground. You're going to hold it there. You're going to contract the glute. You're going to do the abdominal hollow, and then for a good 5 seconds or so, and then you're going to come back down. Okay? And then we could go to the opposite leg. Okay? And again, same thing. So what we're doing here is we're strengthening the glutes. Okay? We're able to do this, and then back down again. And we're just going to repeat this a good 5 times. Okay? What we're doing is it's a way of strengthening this area, contracting it without adding the extension that you would normally get. If it was more of a disc herniation, you would get rid of that bolster, and then you're going to be focusing more, on not causing, any of that bulging of the disc and that flexion type of movement as well. Exercise number 3 is the prone torso extension. So it's a modification of what we just did in exercise number 2, but now instead of a focus of moving the lower limbs, now we're going to be moving the upper body. Again, we're using the bolster to make sure that we stay in flexion, which is more beneficial when you have a lumbar spinal stenosis. So you'll notice it's just a matter of lifting the chest a good 6 to 12 inches off the ground, holding that for 5 seconds, and then going back down. If you are someone who is really more advanced, you can do this without the use of your arms and your hands. But for most people, they're going to need to do some pushing up with the hands or the forearms. Again, that's not where the bulk of the force comes from. You actually want to feel the muscles back here contract. So again, it's a way to actually strengthen part of the lower back without aggravating the lumbar stenosis by adding the bolster and making sure that you've got into flexion. And again, this is something where this is more of a strengthening type of exercise, so you don't necessarily need to do it multiple times a day, although if you have more of the disc bulge or the disc herniation, it can actually be beneficial in terms of relieving some of the pain as well. Exercise number 4 is what we call the wall side bending stretch. So very simply, you're going to be up against the wall. We're going to bend to the side because what we want to do is we want to stretch the muscles on the side of the back, mostly what we call the QLs, the quadratus lumborum. You don't necessarily need to know that. You'll feel a lot more muscles than just that, but what you're going to do is you're going to cross the right leg over the left leg. Okay? You're going to put the hand on the hip, and then the arm is going to come up, and you're going to try to come straight across. You can even use this hand a little bit to support and almost sort of push that to increase the stretch a little bit. You're going to want to, again, whether this is more of a stenosis or more of a disc bulge, if it's a stenosis, you're going to want to try to flatten the back and move that the pelvis so that you're flattening that. If it's more of the disc bulge, you're going to actually do, again, the opposite. But the goal really is to stretch the muscles on the side here. We would hold that for a good 10 seconds or so, and then we would do the opposite side. So we're going to switch the legs. Left leg goes over the right leg. Arm's going to go up. We're going to make sure we're contracting, doing the hollow, and we're going to try to come straight to the side as well. Again, this is a great stretch to try to ease up those tight muscles on both sides of the lower back. Again, you can do this definitely every day, if not 2 or 3 times a day. Don't forget to breathe as well. And exercise number 5 is what we call the side hip lift. So you're on your side. Okay? What we're going to do is we're going to lift the hip, but again, this is where it becomes very important. Is it more lumbar stenosis? Is it more disc bulge? And what you need to know is that most people do not have just one thing. This is one of the problems with things like MRIs or people who've been diagnosed by health professionals who this isn't necessarily their true expertise, is they'll walk in with a, hey, I've got the L4-5 disc herniation, and they think that's all they have. Right? And I can guarantee you, it's always more than one thing. Today we're talking about 2 things, the disc bulge, the L4-5 disc bulge, and the lumbar spinal stenosis. In my center, it's usually 4, 5, 6, 7 different things. Again, that's why you need to see a qualified health professional, because until that happens, you're going to be doing exercises that you might think are beneficial, and you're just hurting yourself. It's the same reason why this advice, just go strengthen your core. Of course you want a strong core, but you don't want to be putting more pressure on something that's already jammed and pinched. And I feel for those people, because then they're almost shamed or guilted, oh, you're just lazy, why aren't you just doing your exercises? You're not doing them because in a lot of cases they're hurting you and they're actually making things worse. So same thing is, we're going to do a side hip lift, and so what you're going to be doing is the leg is going to be lifting up to actually strengthen these muscles, but there's a huge difference in whether this is for stenosis or whether this is for the disc bulge. So if it's for stenosis, notice the bottom leg is flexed forward. By doing that, we're putting the spine into flexion. And so then when we do that, when we lift, we're not going to be aggravating the stenosis. And again, you're going to hold for about 5 seconds, then you can come back down. Okay? Then you can modify this where you can come up again, hold, and then you can even come forward if you want, which again is also keeping you in flexion as well. So this is far better for the stenosis. Right? You come back and you lower again. Again, you're going to want to do this 5 times. If we're doing this for more of the disc bulge or the disc herniation, we don't want to be in flexion. We don't want to be squishing that jelly donut that's going to put more of that bulge or disc herniation right back on the nerve. So now this bottom leg actually comes backwards. And by doing so, we're now getting the spine more into extension. So exact same type of movement, you're coming forward, but this is now geared more if it's the L4-5 disc bulge and really only that. Okay? But if it's causing the stenosis, you're going to find you're going to be leaning towards more the flexion type of movement. But again, this is where you have to pay attention to your body. Back down, and again, don't forget to breathe. Don't forget that you're still contracting the glutes. You're actually, holding that abdominal hollow where you're pulling that belly button in as well. And again, you're going to repeat this a good 4 or 5 times. I'm not a fan of doing exercise first thing in the morning when you first wake up, because there's a lack of blood flow to the area. So you're far better off getting a little movement in there, or it's the one time that it makes sense to actually take a warm shower as well. Now, I hope you found value in these exercises. All 5 can be done together as a routine, or you can pick and choose the ones that fit best for you. I do want to hear from you. Which exercises were the most useful for you? Was it number 3, the prone torso extension, and the way that we can modify that depending on whether it was more geared towards dealing with the disc bulge, disc herniation, or dealing with the lumbar stenosis? Was it number 5, the side hip lift, where it's important to strengthen all those muscles regardless of what condition you have? If you got relief from these exercises and want to see more like this that can target the lower back and the neck, please be sure to subscribe right now so that you don't miss out. And please share and like this video. It would really help the YouTube algorithm to get the video to more people who can really benefit from it, and that's really my goal. The more people we can help, the better the community and the world at large can be. Now, the next video I suggest you watch is this one right here, where I describe in great detail my 7-step non-surgical treatment program for conditions like lumbar spinal stenosis and L4-5 disc bulge. Please go ahead and watch the video right here next.